The offer came on Tuesday, Senior Vice President, a role Jason had been working toward for 11 years. The kind of title that changes everything: the trajectory, the income, the legacy. The kind of offer that does not come twice. The only problem was the location: Seattle. And in Atlanta, where Jason and his wife Renee had built everything: their home, their community, their children's school, Renee's business that had taken 6 years to become what it finally was. And Seattle was not a detail, Seattle was a demolition. Jason called Renee from the parking garage of his office building because he could not wait until he got home, and he could not have the conversation in front of his colleagues. He told her about the offer, the title, the salary, the timeline. He told her everything in one long rush of words, and then he went quiet and waited. Renee was quiet for a long time on the other end of the line. Then she said, "Congratulations. I know how much this means to you." She did not say yes and she did not say no. She said, "Congratulations." And in the specific, careful warmth of those two words, Jason heard everything she was not saying yet. This is the story of what happened next, not a story about a villain, not a story about selfishness or ambition or a spouse who did not care. A story about two people who loved each other completely and wanted genuinely incompatible things at exactly the same time. Welcome back to YinkusPepe Talks. Real talk, real life with clear eyes. If you're new here, my name is YinkusPepe and this is Yinkus Digest. Today's story is about the moment a career opportunity and a marriage stood in the same doorway and there was only one room for one of them to walk through. Jason and Renee met at 24, both Nigerian Americans. He was in corporate finance and she was in the early stages of what would become a successful interior design business. They married at 29 after 5 years together, long enough to know each other well, short enough that neither of them had fully understood what their ambitions would eventually require of them. They had talked about careers before marriage in the broad strokes way that couples talk about things that feel distant and manageable. They had agreed that both careers mattered, that both people's professional lives deserved investment and support, that they would figure it out together as it came. What they had not done was talk about what happened when both careers demanded everything simultaneously. When the figuring it out together meant one person's everything had to yield to the others. That conversation, specific, uncomfortable, with real stakes on the table, had never happened. Not because they had avoided it exactly, because it had not yet been necessary. It became necessary on a Tuesday. They sat with the offer for 2 weeks before either of them said what they actually thought. In those 2 weeks, they had the surface conversation repeatedly: the logistics, the timeline, the children's schooling, the financial implications of the move versus the financial gain of the role. They talked around the center of the thing with the specific efficiency of two intelligent people who understand that getting to the center means one of them will have to say something that cannot be unsaid. Jason said it first. On a Friday night after the children were in bed, he said, "I want to take the job." And then he said, "But I need you to want that with me, not just agree, actually want it." Renee looked at him for a long time and then she said, "I need you to understand what you are asking me to give up." She walked him through it, not as an attack, as a full accounting. 6 years building a client base in Atlanta. A reputation that was specifically local, built on relationships, on referrals, on being known. A business that could not just simply be relocated because it was not a product, it was a presence. Moving to Seattle did not mean starting over from zero. It meant starting over from less than zero in a market where nobody knew her name at all. Jason heard it all. He did not minimize it. He sat with it for a long time before he spoke. Then he said, "What if we said yes for 3 years? What if we treated it as a defined chapter rather than a permanent move? What if we agreed that at the end of 3 years we came back to Atlanta and I found the next thing here?" Renee asked, And if the next thing in Seattle is even bigger, if 3 years becomes 5 and 5 becomes 10, then what happens to mine? Jason did not have an answer for that, because the honest answer was that he did not know. And they both understood that I do not know was not the foundation on which Renee would dismantle 6 years of hard work. They made the decision together. That is important to say clearly. Nobody was forced. Nobody was silenced. They talked for 3 weeks with the kind of sustained, honest effort that most couples never manage, and arrived at a decision that both of them could live with. Jason did not take the Seattle role. He called his company on a Monday morning and declined the job, professionally and graciously, with the specific composure of a man who had made a decision he believed in and was not going to perform ambivalence about it. Renee watched him make that call from the kitchen doorway, and she felt something she had not expected to feel. Not relief, something more complicated than relief. The specific weight of knowing that your spouse has given something significant up for you, and that the giving is real, and the cost is real, and the love of that order creates a debt that cannot be repaid, only honored. What followed was not a happy ending in the simple sense. Jason was not secretly okay with the decision. He had given up something significant, and he knew it, and Renee knew it, and they had both agreed that they will both know it rather than pretend otherwise. There were months, 6 of them, where Jason was quieter than usual, where something in him was processing the loss of a version of his future that had been real, impossible, and chosen against. Renee did not manage that or fix it or ask him to be further along than he was. She witnessed it. She let it be real. She asked how he was doing, and she sat in the real answer when it came. And then, 14 months after the Seattle offer, a role opened up in a firm in Atlanta. Not the same title, not the same salary, but quite significant. A step that was possible because of the years Jason had put in, because of the reputation he had built, and because of the man he was in the industry, regardless of where he was doing it. He took the role. It was not in Seattle. It was also not nothing. Renee's business crossed 7 figures that year. They do not talk about Seattle often anymore. When they do, they talk about it as a decision that showed them who they were to each other. Not the sacrifice, the choice. The specific choice to be the kind of marriage where one person's everything did not automatically outrank the others. I want to name what Jason and Renee got right, because this story could have gone very differently, and understanding why it did not is the most useful thing I can offer you today. The first thing they got right was that they had the real conversation, not the logistics. Conversation. The center conversation. The one where Jason said, "I want this and I need you to actually want it with me." And Renee said, "Here is the full accounting of what you are asking me to give up." The level of honesty delivered without weaponizing and received without defensiveness is not common. It is not easy. And it is the only thing that makes a decision of this magnitude something both people can actually live with, rather than one person surviving and one person managing resentment indefinitely. The second thing they got right was that they agreed on what kind of marriage they were. Because the decision was made, they had named explicitly out loud to each other that they were not a marriage where one person's career automatically took precedence over the other, that both careers mattered, that any decision of this size will be made together with both people's full reality on the table. The third thing they got right was the aftermath. Jason did not perform okayness he did not feel. Renee did not perform gratitude without the weight of what it had cost him. They let the decision be real, including its loss, and they witnessed each other's experience of it rather than rushing past it towards a version of the story that was easier to tell. Thank you so much for listening today. And if this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments below. And until next time, this is Yinkus Pepe.